Hi everybody, Joe here, and I know I have not made a video in 6 months or more, I think. And I've been so tickled to get the YouTube comments and the occasional email saying, "Hey, where'd you go? We were enjoying your channel and you left." So I thought I would make another video because I've missed the vinyl community, and I'm happy to report that my absence was not because I fell out of love with vinyl or anything like that. I actually got a promotion at work, and the downside of that is that it takes a lot more of my time now, and so I'm working a lot more hours, and I just haven't had as much free time. But I have still been buying records, and I have a big backlog, and we're not going to get to them all today. But I thought I would show some of my favorite recent purchases for you, to let you know the kinds of things I have been picking up. And since we last spoke, we had one of the major passings in the rock and roll industry here. See my reflection? David Bowie's Black Star, his final album, and the shrink wrap, as you see here, tore when I peeled the price sticker off. But it is still sealed. I haven't played this on vinyl yet. I do have it on MP3. Wonderful album. Really enjoying it. Glad to have this on vinyl. I don't buy a lot of new vinyl just because it's still very expensive, and that was not a cheap record. But glad to have it. I look forward to spinning it. And here's another one of my rarer new vinyl purchases. I love the film, the TV show rather, Mystery Science Theater 3000. I backed the recent Kickstarter to bring it back, and one of the movies that they made fun of on that show was Manos: The Hands of Fate, which recently got remastered on Blu-ray, and they issued for the first time ever a soundtrack album. And I'll show you this because there were a certain number of colored vinyl copies, and I got the what's called Torgo Brown vinyl. It's kind of a marbled. There's the label for each side. Great B horror classic, classic in the loosest sense of the word. It's widely considered to be one of the worst movies of all time, but you know what? Even so, even though I can't argue with that, it has a cheesy charm that I enjoy, and I'm glad to have the soundtrack on vinyl. And curtain, go away! Stop attacking me. So another purchase I had recently, and I just got this I think 2 days ago at my local record store. This is not new, quite the opposite, but soundtrack album for the Batman 1966 TV show. And this is I wish you could see it the way I see it, because looking at the reflection, you don't see how vivid the blue and yellow are. It looks kind of washed out on the computer screen, but in real life, it's beautiful, beautiful copy. And this thing looks like it hasn't been played. I have not played it yet, but the vinyl is absolutely flawless. Then, yeah, I tell you, I don't buy a lot of new vinyl, but the next couple were new purchases. Jack White, the musician from the White Stripes, has his own record label, Third Man Records, and he has started issuing classic blues and jazz, and so I've been picking up some of those. This is volume one of the complete Blind Willie McTell. I have played this. It's got the shrink on it, but it's no longer sealed. Heavy. It doesn't say if it's 180 gram vinyl, but it feels like it is. It's a nice thick record. And I love the style of artwork here, this kind of red and black. And he's kind of carrying that on for some of these other ones that he's doing here. Charlie Patton, Volume 1, great Delta blues singer. I have this one. And I also have Volume 2, which looks very similar, but not quite identical. The eyes are different. And there are, four of these total, but I've only got the first two so far for Charlie Patton. If you love Robert Johnson, this was the predecessor to the great Robert Johnson. It's wonderful music, very raw. And one more of the Jack White series here is Volume 1 of the Mississippi Shakes. These are early. This is they're all chronological order. These are February 17th to June 10th, 1930, and there are 5 LPs in this set, but I've only got the first one so far. But I love kind of the artwork. They're all on very, very thick vinyl, and they sound pretty good for the era in which they were recorded. Picked up one, classic that we all must have, a copy of Led Zeppelin 3. Not an original. I think this is a mid-70s reissue. It is on Atlantic, this style Atlantic, not the old style Atlantic label that the original pressings were on. Sounds really good. I enjoy it. This is in fact the first album I ever bought on CD. So nice to have it on vinyl, which I've never owned it on before. This is an album I picked up today, in fact, and one of my favorites, one of my favorite albums of all time. Glad to have it on vinyl. Here is Bob Dylan's Blood on the Tracks. And this has, I'm not going to take all of these out, but I wanted to show this label because it's one that I don't think I've seen before on Columbia. Usually when I see Dylan on Columbia, it's either the mid-'80s Dylan or the 1 or 2 I labels, which, see, this one doesn't have the eyes, the CBS eyes on either side. So that was one, it's one I haven't seen before. So it doesn't mean it's rare, it just means I haven't encountered it before. So anyway, I love that album. I'm glad to have it on vinyl, and in fact, I picked up several Dylan albums on vinyl recently. Blood on the Tracks is one of my favorites. This also is one of my favorite Dylan albums. This is Desire, which has, I think, one of my very favorite Dylan songs on it, Isis, which is the second song on side 1. No, it's not about the terrorist organization. It is about the Egyptian god. Wonderful album, not a bad song on it. Probably his best 70s album for me, maybe even better than Blood on the Tracks, although I think critical consensus would disagree with me on that. A while back, I made a video talking about a time I went to the flea market and bought records for Homer Simpson, from Homer Simpson, rather. That was video number 11 on my list, if you haven't seen that one. And I talked about how I almost bought a copy of Bob Dylan's Infidels, but the guy ruined it. And so now I do have a copy of Infidels by Bob Dylan. Pretty good 80s album. Here is a repressing of another early Dylan classic, Another Side of Bob Dylan. I'm trying to angle these so that the shrink wrap doesn't reflect too badly. Great early Dylan album. This was his 4th album. A lot of great songs on here. Chimes of Freedom is maybe the best known, but also It Ain't Me, Babe. To Ramona, I love Chimes of Freedom. Lots of good stuff on there. Here is an album I like better than a lot of people do. Here is Nashville Skyline. This is also a repressing. I really like this album a lot. It's Dylan's first quote-unquote country album. It's very short. It's like 28 minutes. It's in and done, But it has Johnny Cash as guest vocalist on the track Girl from the North Country. And that's a mandatory reason to own this album, even if the rest of the album wasn't pretty good. Here is another Dylan I picked up, which is not an album I love. This is Bob Dylan's Empire Burlesque. You can just tell by the picture that it's 80s keyboard heavy, kind of not really very good Dylan. This was before the comeback of Oh Mercy. I picked it up to plug the hole in the collection. I don't love this album. I've never loved it, but now I have it. And one more Dylan I got recently. This is New Morning. This is a pretty good album. This was the follow-up to Nashville Skyline. It still has kind of a country tinge to it, but not as overtly country as Nashville Skyline was. A lot of people love this album. I think it's pretty good. I like Nashville a little bit better. But this has George Harrison as a guest on it with the song If Not For You. So Dylan recorded it on this album, and George Harrison recorded it on his All Things Must Pass album. So these were both recorded around the same time. You can compare the two versions. So very, very good album. So that's all the Dylan I picked up. I do have a few more, quite a few more actually, to show. Um, as I've mentioned before, the Beatles are always like my true passion, and so I'm just picking up some stuff I had in my original collection before it got destroyed in flooding. Here's a nice copy of Imagine. It's on Apple. The cover is not great. You can see like there's like a little bit of peeling right here, but the vinyl's very good on this one. Maybe one day I can find a better copy of the cover. But very nice copy of the LP. Glad to have it for a very reasonable price. One of the other classics of all time, Mr. Marvin Gaye, with some of the greatest musical social commentary that we've ever had. What's Going On, featuring the title track and of course Mercy Mercy Me. Um, Music achieved perfection with those two songs. Again, not a great cover, but the LP is pretty good. Here is one of all the time I've been back into collecting, which is almost a year. Would you believe I have never come across a copy of Abbey Road in the Wild, apart from the 180 gram remasters? But I wanted to just pick up a copy, and it's probably not an original copy, but it is on Apple. It's not in great shape, which is why it was affordable. There is some scuffing on it, but I have not played this yet. But when I touch the scuffing, I don't feel anything, nothing raised, so it might play okay. But when I take the album out and look at it and hold it up to the light, there is like no luster on this album at all. It's like completely matte, colored. It's not reflective at all. So somebody played the living hell out of that album. Uh, hopefully I can get some use out of it. I love the album. Of course, I've heard it a zillion times. Glad to have it on vinyl again. Hope it's a decent copy, but I paid very little for it. How about some James Brown? James Brown yesterday and today. I have not played this yet, but just picked this up a couple of days ago. I love the track listing on this, and hope it sounds good. It's in good shape, the vinyl anyway. How about some Muddy Waters with a double LP? Back in the early days, volume 1 and 2. This was recommended to me by my friend who works at the record store. He said he liked it. All right, I picked it up. I love Muddy Waters. I have not heard this yet. It's in absolutely pristine shape. I mean, vinyl looks virtually untouched. So hopefully I'll enjoy it. Next up, we'll get into some jazz picks I got recently. Here is a copy of Miles Davis Decoy. And when I have like my records I haven't played yet, I kind of have them like in one stack. And for the last week or so, this album has been facing out at the front of the stack. So every time I look over, Miles is looking at me and he's not happy. And so I have to turn him around when I go to sleep because he scares me a little bit. But he might be happier when he sees that I did also pick up a second Miles album. This one in a little bit not quite as good a shape, but Miles Davis's Porgy and Bess. This one is a 2i Columbia pressing. You see on either side of the label there. Maybe it's better because it'll be right side up. The 2i. Kind of mixed condition. But one thing that's interesting about this is, you look at the cover, it doesn't look so bad. You look at the back cover, whoops, it doesn't look so bad. But here at the bottom, it's split, and I can't get that album back in the cover now. I just can't get it to go back in, so I don't know if the sleeve is too thick or something, but I mean, it came out, so there must be a way to get it back in, but I might have to try bagging that and putting the record behind the cover, which I typically do anyway. All right, not too many more here. Duke Ellington live at Newport. I know this more by reputation. Very famous album. Haven't heard it yet, but I love Ellington. I've heard a lot of his music, and I've heard a lot about this album. So looking forward to checking that out. Here is the great Satchmo, Louis Armstrong, the original When the Saints Go Marching In. And there's the back cover, which I love. Very nice. Couple more. All jazz here. We got The Art of Charles Mingus, The Atlantic Years. This is a gatefold 2LP. Oh, sorry about that reflection. Trying to, yeah. There's the track listing there. I have not played that yet, but I did get another Charles Mingus album. I don't know if it's in this stack or not. I've been playing that one, and that's really good. Here is a Dizzy Gillespie album with Jerry Mulligan. I played side one of this, really liked it a lot. Very nice. And, oh, here's that other Mingus album. It is in here, so I'll go ahead and show you that one. Charles Mingus the Clown. The title track is just too out there for me, but I love the rest of the album. Those of you who know Charles Mingus know he was very experimental. Probably you could find it on YouTube. See if you can find his track, The Clown, because I don't get it. But I love the rest of the album, so it's a great 3/4 of an album. And let's see, I showed you that one. Here's the last one for this stack. Here is another double LP. This is Sonny Rollins, Ron Carter, and McCoy Tyner, called the Jazz Stars, Milestone Jazz Stars. It's a live album. And I played the first album of this, and it is wonderful. This is everything I hoped it would be, and I think I paid like $2 for this album. And, you know, it's in really, really good shape apart from some wear on the cover. The vinyl's fantastic. So, wow, that was a big haul of records. And I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm going to try to post a little more regularly and be more aggressive in my commenting on some of your other videos. I appreciate everybody who's let me know they've missed me and who have commented on my videos while I've been away. Great to be with you all again, and thanks for watching. See ya.